Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski, speaking to you from my home in Susia in the Hebron Hills on this rainy Thursday, February 4th. Thank God we have rain. It is a bracha. We all enjoy it, and we need it here in Israel. We need it. Nobody complains about the rain in Israel. It's pretty amazing. You know, no songs like "Rain, Rain, Go Away." The kids don't learn those songs. It just doesn't happen here because rain is exciting and rain is good and we need it. Look, we're in the desert here. We're in the desert. No matter where you are here, it's a desert. It's been a difficult week. All the news we read is either about corona, whether it's the vaccine or the infection rate climbing, or the political situation, both here in Israel with elections coming up, and in the States with the new President Joe Biden from my home state of Delaware, and all the different executive orders going into effect there. So it's hard to see any really clear, good news out of all these things. And I think a lot of people are in a state of malaise. And I see it on social media. People are complaining, what is it? I just can't feel up. I don't have any energy. What is it? And I feel the same way, that it's got to change. And I think one way we can change it is speak to our parents, speak to people who are older than us. And they have a different set of, routines, and they look at things differently, and they have different struggles. And I spoke to my mother and my mother-in-law, and it makes me feel better. They don't see Israel. They're not in Israel. They have their own set of, problems over there. And thank God we're here. Thank God I'm here. Whatever malaise I feel and whatever new, lockdown restrictions is going to be announced, I'd rather be here, suffering here, than anywhere else. Thank you all for listening today. We have a wonderful guest for you, a few actually. So stick around. We will be back after these brief messages.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. Joining us today is Aaron Friedman from Efrat, originally from Chicago. I believe he's in his late 30s. He has a couple kids. He is some kind of computer expert. And he has a very interesting hobby that he has taken up in Israel, something like search and rescue dogs. But before we get into that, let's welcome him to the show. Aaron, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Did I hit all the high spots just then?
Those are the highlights about me. Yes, that's pretty much everything.
Pretty good. All right. So tell us quickly about your background and how you ended up in Israel with the rest of the Americans.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Chicago. I met my wife when we were in Yeshiva University. We were actually both supposed to be doing a program where we took kids to Poland, the Ukraine, and then Israel for a week. Poland for a week, Ukraine for 3 weeks, and then Israel for a week. Is NCSY Jolt, and that's how we met. And
I can't believe I never heard of this. You go to the Ukraine for 3 weeks?
yeah, we were actually running a summer camp for Jewish kids that kind of they just didn't know. They didn't know they were Jewish, or they just found out they were Jewish. And the whole idea was to sort of like give them this immersive experience into Judaism. And it was really a crazy experience. They didn't know, they couldn't speak English. We had to have translators with us. And
that sounds awful.
It was, look, it was,
summer camp is that?
Well, it wasn't a summer camp it's called NCSY Jolt. It's Jewish Overseas Leadership Training. So it's supposed to be, training for these kids to be, future leaders. And
they don't know they're Jewish. Very nice. Okay.
No. We were. So it's a little weird. We were the counselors for we were the advisors for the kids that we brought with, and then they were the ones running the camp for the Ukraine children.
Were they children?
They were children. They were They were like they were like proper like second grade, third grade, and
okay.
Yeah, they were kids. Like we were running like arts and crafts with them, and we were singing like Shema Yisrael with them in Ukrainian, and it was like a whole bizarre experience. But that's how I met my wife. That's how. Well, the moral of the story is that's how I met my wife.
Okay.
And we ended up when we were dating, we always said that we wanted to make Aliyah, and that was why we continued dating. I don't know if at the time, I can honestly tell you, I don't know if I knew why I wanted to make Aliyah. I just knew that I had spent a year and a half studying in Israel, shortly before that, and just felt this draw and this pull coming back. And I didn't know really why, but that was it. And that was how it was. And then we got married. We moved back to Chicago, where I'm from.
All right. So stop a second,
Okay.
because when we spoke last time, you told me about your background. When I say background, you don't just all of a sudden get married. First, you had probably 20 years before that, and yes. You told me you were raised in a modern Orthodox bubble. And you even told me that you went to a camp called Mosheva. You spoke to me as if I should know what this is. Never heard of it before.
Right.
And I mean, your life was all about Zionism, Israel, and you even said going into Israel for your gap year was something that you didn't even have a choice about. It was just expected.
Yeah, so it's true. I grew up in a modern Orthodox family in Skokie, Illinois, and I went to modern Orthodox day school my whole life, and when I went to high school, I remember them distinctly telling us that it was an expectation. Like, this is a 5-year high school program, 4 years in school, and then a year abroad in Israel, and that was just how it was done. Everyone did it. Mm-hmm. And I growing up, I went to Jewish summer camp. The summer camp that I went to was in Wild Rose, Wisconsin. It's Camp Mosheva, which was the B'nai Akiva summer camp. And all of these places that I went to, whether it was a modern Orthodox day school or a Jewish overnight summer camp, they were all very Zionistic camps. They were all, talked about Israel. We celebrated Yom Ha'atzmaut, and we did, all sorts of events in the summer. And they kind of stopped there. I don't know if it really went much further. At least for me, it didn't. For me, it didn't feel like it really went much further than that. There was no one was standing up, and no one was ever standing up in front of me and saying, like, you must move to Israel. Here's why it's so important. And I never left any of those programs or schools or whatnot just feeling like I need to go to Israel. I didn't get that feeling until after high school, after spending time in yeshiva and sort of living there and experiencing it.
All right. Now, if that happened to you, I was speaking to my husband about this, and he said, well, if their whole goal is to get them to go to this 5th year in Israel, don't you think it would naturally occur that the whole goal, the whole time, was to have them live in Israel?
For who? For the children or for
you? For people like you?
Well, no, not necessarily. I think it's a way. It's I think that I do think that there's people do identify and say, look, it's the Jewish homeland and it's an amazing place and it's our place that we have to be proud of. But we're also American Jews and we should be proud of where we live and help building up this area. And
I got to just stop you right there because I cannot handle that. I can't.
I can't.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're 100%
I don't know.
right. You're 100%
for sure.
right. You said it right. You said it, and you said it because it's true. And I have been to Illinois, Skokie, and I have been to Bal Harbor, and I have been to these fancy places in Los Angeles, and I have never seen such fancy synagogues in my life, and I've never seen what are they called after shul? Kiddush, where
Kiddush
they have
club.
like a tryout food. No, not Kiddush Club. I'm talking about the meal, okay?
Yeah, the meal.
We don't even have a social hall in my shul here in Susia. We have 3 Kiddushes a year, and they are outside on set up tables, and it's bamba and juice, and maybe a kugel, and maybe some pickles, and that is a huge deal. And the kids go crazy over it, and it's a big mess afterwards. It's 3 times a year.
Yeah, we have the same thing. We have the same thing here in. It's very different. It's very, very different. We have the same thing here in Efrat, and I think that unfortunately, I think that's a very common view in America. I think that people.
What's the view? What do you mean view?
The view is that they're the view of we are Jews living in America, and we have a responsibility to build up American Jewry and to strengthen it.
Sure,
and I think that and I think that there's there's some value, and obviously you want Jews living in a connected community, someone where they identify, or an identifiable community where you can walk in there and say, oh, look at this, there's Jews here. This is how Jews act. Like they act around the world. Like, so that's what Galut was. I mean, that it was Jews trying to revive what they had, just not living in Israel.
What do you mean was? What do you mean was? Is?
Well, I said, but the reason I say was is because now there is an opportunity to not be in that Galut. And now they're actually not taking advantage of it. So we have a different problem nowadays. Nowadays, you have a situation where people don't feel the need, despite the fact of everything going on, they still don't feel the need to come here. They still want to try to build up American Jewry. Mm-hmm. And that was, I think, where I sort of started to feel, at least once I started to have this like awakening or this like eye-opening experience. I don't know what it was or what triggered it necessarily, but I was fortunate enough to at least be, my eyes opened up enough to just see something and say, wait, something doesn't make sense. Good. And that was what I think for us triggered a desire to want to move to Israel and really follow through on that dream.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I'm glad it happened. I wish it would happen more.
Yeah. Well, and it's with us, actually, with us specifically. I in some ways, I kind of wish we did a little bit more planning than we did. We, again, like I said, we had known that we wanted to make Aliyah when we were dating. We said, like, if this works, we both want to live in Israel. When we got married, we said, let's do this. Let's go to Israel. And like we said we're on a 5-year plan after we got married. And then 5 years later, we kind of like looked at each other and we're like, uh-oh, now what? Like, it's 5 years. Like, are we going to go? Are we going to do this? And I do remember very, very distinctly that my son was starting kindergarten that year. Or the next year, and we looked at the schools and we couldn't decide where we wanted to send him there, and we just like, wait, weren't we supposed to make Aliyah right now, like this year? And we just felt like because we were so like up in the air about what to do with his school, and like we really did have this pull to want to go there, and it just felt like it was this now or never moment that if we didn't, we would just get stuck, and we wouldn't be able to ever make that jump to want to make Aliyah because we'd be immersed in America and like our life there. And that was the defining moment for us, and we saw it and we jumped. Good.
I'm glad you did. I'm very glad you did. I hear that over and over, that people say now or never, and they're looking at the time in their life where they are at that time. And yeah, it's just like you said, is when your children are still young, do it while they're young. It's easy while they're young. It's true.
It is. And you know what? You can do it when your kids are older. It just, I know I've heard too many. I didn't want to become one of those horror stories because I knew I wanted to move here. And I knew that even 20 years later, I would have looked back and said, I really wish we made Aliyah. Or, yeah, we had or what you commonly hear is we have a 5-year plan, which turned into a 10-year plan and then a 20-year plan. And we still haven't made Aliyah, but we want to. We still want to. But I see too many people that get stuck there. And I couldn't become one of those people that didn't do it.
That's right. So when you say you wanted to do more planning, it doesn't matter. You're never going to do enough planning, just like you're never going to have enough money. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. So you just come and bite the bullet and come. You only get one life anyway. I mean, you only have really, and my husband hates it when I say this, but you only have really 70 good years, okay? Because that's, healthy, good, active years. That's right. Doesn't that sound kind of
it does. I mean, I'm even thinking it's less. To be honest, I think it's probably more like to be honest, it's probably like 50 because you don't know what.
Hey there, I am 50 and just settle down. All right.
No. But I'm saying, but I'm saying from 0 to about like 15, you don't know what's going on. Like you're just like coasting.
That doesn't count. But what I mean is, what I mean is like, don't wait, because waiting doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get you anything. It's just waiting. And then there's more time lost. Time you can't get back. You can't.
You can't. Time is just moving.
Yeah, just moving. Okay, stay with us. We're going to get back with you after these messages. I want to hear a little bit about how you made that transformation and what you've been doing since you've been here. You've been here about 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah, 7.5.
Okay, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Siminto from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together, we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Siminto, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Yeah, so great to be. Thanks for having me again. Where did we leave off last time? I was telling you more about my. Oh, there you are. Okay, great.
Are we?
We're back on.
You're kidding me. We're on the air.
We are.
I to get water. Terrible timing. Okay, when we left before the break, you were telling us pretty much how you don't ever have enough time. And, you're glad you made the jump when you did. And we were talking about how a lot of people do put it off, and it's a mistake. It is a mistake. So you're here. You came when you were, what, 32, 30, 31?
No, actually, I came when I was 27 or 28.
All right, young. So good.
Definitely young, but enough that they didn't let me into the Army, and I was, devastated by it. I don't know why, but I was, devastated by it.
Well, that's a very nice segue into what you're doing today. So tell us what you did professionally before, and your wife, what you did, and tell us just how that worked out for you, because that's a big concern people have, making that hurdle.
For sure. I actually went into digital marketing. So my first job, I was doing SEO and just, working on getting websites to rank. And I did that for a bunch of agencies in America, and that's where I learned everything. My wife is a nurse. So she was working in Chicago for nursing homes, actually. And when we decided to make Aliyah, she had to transfer her license. And I was actually fortunate enough to have found a job before we moved here. So I started working at a company here, remote, for a little bit, and then.
That's today that's normal, but back then it was probably so exciting and so unusual.
It was and I was so nervous. To be honest, I was so nervous about that. I knew that I'd find something, and I knew I'd figure something out because, I had been doing some public speaking, and I kind of had my name was known a little bit. So I was fairly confident I would have found something, but I was still so nervous that I'd come here and I'd have this gap of getting paid for maybe a couple months. And I was really a little bit panicked about it, to be honest. But I was fortunate enough to find something beforehand. My wife, however, did decide she had to take some time off because she had to transfer her license, and that was not easy. They Nefesh B'Nefesh helped with some guidelines on what to do, but the process was impossible at the time. It was so impossible. She couldn't take she had to transfer her documents and do all sorts of things, and it was not English friendly. Nowadays, and she was actually involved in helping make this happen. I think somehow, I don't exactly know how, but now I think nurses can take the exam abroad even before they make Aliyah, and it's also offered in English. So that was a huge benefit that didn't exist for her.
You say take the exam. What if the nurse is already? If they're a nurse already, can't they just come here and transfer their license?
No, they can't. They can't transfer their license. I hope one day they get to that point, but right now they can't transfer their license. So they do need to take a new nursing exam. So they have to take the Israeli nursing exam.
Yeah, that's awful.
And it is, and look, it is and it isn't, because you still have to make sure that people know what they're doing and they're up to, the different, the same guidelines and the same standards. So on one hand, it's annoying, but because you're I'm a professional, why not? But at the same time, you could also just get recertified here and, take that test. And it's a pain in the butt, but you could do it. So
your wife was involved in making that an easier process, right?
Yeah, she was somehow involved. I don't exactly know how. I should ask her about that, but she was involved in making that an easier process. And then I actually at some point transitioned to working more in like the high tech world. So I'm working, I've worked at some of the, bigger startups in the country, working in more digital marketing capacities and other, other like more sales support areas.
So important today. And you're so lucky because today that everyone is online. I mean, social media is it's not just a necessity today. It's more than that because people don't meet in person anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how I built my career on like social media marketing and SEO. So that was for me a big thing. And that's what I do professionally. And then I have, my kids that we have, we made Aliyah with 2 kids and we had a few more here. So we're a family of 5, nice. 5 kids. Yeah, and we have a dog and we got a dog. And that was sort of my contribution to, I couldn't do the Army. They didn't let me in. And I joined this volunteer search and rescue unit. So I started training my dog to find missing people. And that's sort of how I'm getting done.
Slow down, because that's pretty amazing. And it doesn't just happen. And you're making it sound like, well, you didn't just train your dog. Tell me really what happened, because that's a serious commitment that you've made, and serious consequences. Come on, you're saving lives. So tell us.
True. That's true. So the story is that we had I grew up with dogs. So dogs aren't new to me. But I grew up with Labradors. And my wife and I think at one point we'd always talked about wanting to get a dog. And at work once somebody had shared with me that there was a dog that they had where they were looking to get adopted. It was this like puppy, which they said it was a border collie. It was definitely not a border collie, which we later figured out. It was this like Kanani dog, like a local, mountain dog that someone found, and we got it at like 5 months, and it was a good dog. And I spent a lot of time training it to make it like the best dog I could. And eventually it didn't work out. The dog ended up biting someone, and my wife didn't feel comfortable having that dog in the house. So we ended up rehoming the dog, and it was kind of, for me, it was at least a little bit, on one hand, I was devastated about it because I really spent a lot of time with that dog. I mean, I spent like 8 months training the dog. And I learned how to train, and this is kind of the key to the story. I learned how to train the dog from somebody local. His name's Micha Katz, and he owns the pet store here. But he also runs the Gush Etzion branch of the Israel Dog Unit, the Yechidat Kalmanim Israel. And he was the one that helped me do all the training and made a lot of progress. I really fell in love with the whole training process for dogs. And one day he told me, or I had found out that his dog had puppies. And so when I knew that we were getting rid of this dog, I said to him, I'm like, look, Micha, I know that your dog just had puppies. I know that your dog is in the unit, and I know that these puppies are probably going to be good for the unit. I want in. I want to do something. Like, you've seen me train. You've seen what I can do. Like, I want in. He's like, I don't know. And I like pushed him, and finally he's like, all right, really? You can.
Oh God.
And that was actually what happened. And I didn't realize, the truth is that I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. Like, this is a very, this dog is a very high drive, high energy dog. And like, my wife was pregnant at the time. So we got the dog in, we got the dog in July. We got the dog in May, and the baby was born 2 months later. So it's just like a whole crazy thing. I've been calling them the twins for a year, and she didn't know that. But she was.
Tell me what that means. What do you mean?
Well, we got a puppy, and then my wife had a baby 2 months later. So they were just so.
Okay, let me explain to you something. A puppy is not a baby.
Well, she's kind of my baby though, because I spent. So the thing is that I spend so much time with her because of the training.
Clear that you said that, and everyone heard it. Okay.
Well, okay, but my wife has also said it, so at least I can tell her that she was. But it is different because this isn't just like a family dog. This is a dog that I spend all my time with, and she's like in some ways like a partner for me. Like, we go out, on missions to look for people that are missing. They've just, for.
Okay, so tell me how that works. Okay. Tell me how this unit works. Do you have, tell me how it works. You get a call in the middle of the night. Have you been trained with the group? The dog sniffs the ground until he sniffs a footprint,
Well, actually, yeah, exactly. So I'm on a group, and when there is a missing person or there's a situation, we're informed of it. And if it's necessary for a dog to show up, they'll kind of dispatch me. They'll call me and say, this is where we are. Come on over with your dog. So I'll show up, and depending on what the situation is, there's different kinds of searching. So if it's in the middle of a forest and we know where the person started, or if we're in the middle of a city and we know where the person started, I'll take the clothing and I'll let the dog sniff it, and then I'll have her on a leash and I'll, follow the actual path.
What do you mean by clothing of the victim?
Yeah, I mean,
whatever clues you have.
Whatever clues we have.
Okay, but did they train you to do this, or tell me, you can't just become a member of a dog unit just because you have a dog.
Well, I mean, I specifically got the dog to join the unit, though. So it was, for me, that was how I did it. For other people,
listen. Did the dog need to be trained?
The dog was. Yeah, the dog was 7. When I got the dog, her name's Maggie. I got her. She was 7 weeks old. And I've been working with her since then. So I would we have group trainings.
Okay. So you kind of skipped that, but it's important.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. She was 7 months old. That's what I meant. She was my baby at the same time that my
baby. You trained this dog. I mean, you put effort and time into this dog.
Oh, I put a lot into her. I mean, she's with me all day, every day. And I'm constantly working with her for, tracking to look, she started with like little paths of hot dogs, and we sort of expanded to now she's looking for live people that are like in the middle of a forest. Yeah, and that's just some of the work that she does, or, we're going to hopefully do more. And also part of it has been, obedience training with her to just make her good around people.
What kind of dog is she? What kind?
She's a Belgian Malinois. So this is the same kind of dog that they'll use in, the dog units in the army or in the police forces.
Big dog.
She's an amazing dog, and they're very high drive, and they have a lot of energy, and require a lot of attention. And she's the most loyal dog I've ever had or I've ever been with. She loves the kids and the family. It's just
it's totally changed your life, I'm sure.
Oh yes, I mean this is one of those defining things that has changed my life in many ways. Aliyah's at the very, very top of the list, and she is also very, very high up there.
Yeah, I know. We got one too. That's amazing. Well, thank you. We're out of time. Great to hear your story. I hope everyone's listening. And we will have a summary with your information and information about the dog unit too, Aaron. I'm going to put that up on our summary. Okay?
Okay, amazing.
Great. Thank you. Have a great week.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
and me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Returning Home. That was very interesting. I love dogs. We got a dog in October, and it also changed our life. So that was very, very nice to hear. And, you can really make a big difference in Israel. No matter what you do professionally, there's always something you can give. Joining us today is my old friend, Zezi Fold. Zezi, thank you for coming.
Hey, man. How are you? Thanks for having me again.
Good. We were just talking to some guy in a frat, and I'll tell you that I have decided no more Gushnikim, no more people from Gush Etzion, and no more people from Beit Shemesh, because I feel like that group, those Anglos, are living in a bubble. And I even spoke to this guy last week when I did a pre-interview with him, and he even said that to me. He's like, well, I pretty much live in a bubble. It's very homogeneous here. We're all kind of the same, and I really like that. And I can appreciate that. I like it. I like living with people who I trust and they're like me. But there are a lot of faces to Israel, and there are a lot of other places to be. And it's something that I think we can talk about, because I think you probably have a very different view.
It's funny that you keep mentioning it, because honestly, when people talk to me about Aliyah and they talk to me about what their experience is, I actually push them towards those places, the Efrat, the Ra'anana, the Modi'in, the Beit Shemesh, because I often tell people, it's funny because you're very much a pioneer. You want to go to a new place and you want to, slum it and make it as an Israeli. Also, when I'm telling people about Aliyah, I'm not telling them to slum it. I'm telling them, keep your American life, keep it the way it is, and you know what? Move to America just in Israel. Because I honestly believe that you don't have to have the Zionistic mission to live in Israel. I don't believe that needs to happen for everybody.
Okay. I'm not talking about Zionistic mission. Zionistic mission is where you live and believing that Israel exists. You're right. You can do that in Beit Shemesh. Fine. It doesn't make you any less of an Israeli than me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that by only showcasing people who are from the 5 towns and today live in Gush Etzion, that's a certain sect of people, and we're not all like that. I wasn't like that. And if I had thought that my only options for living in Israel were Beit Shemesh or Efrat, I probably wouldn't have come, because I don't fit in. I didn't fit into Teaneck, New York, and I wouldn't fit into Gush Etzion. And there are other people like me that I would think could feel the same way. And I think it's a mistake. But let's hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I think that, listen, the reason that people are gearing towards Efrat and gearing towards Beit Shemesh and gearing towards, as you're saying, the 5 towns of New York people is because that's where the percentages are coming from. I mean, you're telling me that you came from, where'd you come from exactly? Where was your Aliyah from again?
Delaware.
Okay. So how many people, go to the percentages, how many people from Delaware made Aliyah? Okay? If you ever watch Wayne's World, when it comes to... Okay, exactly. You ever watch the movie Wayne's World? They bring up Delaware. The whole world is so much fun, and then you have Delaware. Delaware is probably the most dullest place in the world. I mean, you live there. Maybe it's not, but I'm just telling you,
Who cares? It's not relevant. We're not talking about it.
No, it is relevant. It is
I'm
relevant.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Teaneck, New York, or
it is
whatever.
relevant. I'll tell you why it is relevant. Because when I'm looking at, let's say I'm working for Nefesh B'Nefesh, and I'm looking to get the best bang for my buck. I'm looking to get 200 people from his community to go to. I'm going to go to Far Rockaway, New York, or Lawrence, New York. I ain't going to Huppitville, Delaware, to try to get 200 people to make Aliyah.
So you're saying it's like a promotional campaign. It's a sale. We got to sell Israel, and we got to sell where it's going to get the biggest.
You don't think that Nefesh B'Nefesh is selling Aliyah?
I don't think they should have to.
That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing to say. It's a beautiful thing to say that they don't have to, but they are. Nefesh B'Nefesh is selling Aliyah. They shouldn't have to? Okay, that's beautiful. That's a nice thing to say, but they are.
But I'll tell you, they shouldn't have to, and I'll tell you why. Exactly like this guy Aaron just told me. He grew up in Skokie. He went to this Camp Mosheva. He went to day school his whole life. He was told when he went to high school, the 5th year is in Israel. So they're selling Israel already. That whole lifestyle selling Israel.
Okay, but Natalie, let me tell you like this. Let me tell you like this. Going to Camp Morashah and saying the Hatikva is a whole load of garbage. I'm telling you this straight from somebody who's been in the 5 towns. There is one thing to be a Zionist in Camp Morashah or Camp Mosheva, one of these camps, and to bleed blue and white, and then to actually believe it. You know, when I was making Aliyah, I was working for a school, and when I told her I was making Aliyah, they offered me money not to make Aliyah. And when I said, no, I'm making Aliyah, they offered me more money to not make Aliyah. And I went back to them, and I was like, hey, you guys are the ones that are promoting Aliyah in the world. You guys are the most Zionistic school. And I'm telling you I want to make Aliyah, and you're telling me, no, stay here? You know, that's a whole load of garbage. So when push comes to shove, who really is behind the Aliyah movement? meaning you see these little notions and these small things when we're children. And Camp Morashah, Camp Moshava, those are all beautiful things. But then you need a company, I'm calling it a company right now, like Nefesh B'Nefesh, to come in to, quote-unquote, advertise in your face to say, no, we believe that we understand that you could stay in America and live the cushy life, or you can move to Israel. No, trust us. Listen, Israel's just like America. You'll do the same business. You'll do everything the same. It's marketing. That's what it is. So the bottom line to say that people are wanting to move to Susia, Americans. Natalie, how many Americans do you have in Susia?
There's only us.
Exactly. You don't have anybody there. You're a special breed, and you think everyone's like you. There are. Listen, Natalie, there are definitely people like you.
But why do the other people get all the attention? Why do the Teaneck people and the Far Rockaway people, why do they even need? I just find it so bizarre that they need the marketing. They grow up with Israel in their breakfast cereal.
Maybe I didn't explain it well enough. Maybe I didn't explain it well enough. Natalie, to hear one thing as you grow up, to hear one thing over and over again, this is how we believe. There's a joke. I think I actually told you this joke once before, but I'll say it again. It's Pesach night and Haggadah, and they're singing L'Shana Haba B'Yisrael. Next year we're going to be in Yerushalayim, right? They're singing at the table, and all of a sudden the husband gets up, and he sees his wife, and she's crying. So he goes ahead, and he goes to the kitchen. He goes to his wife. He goes, "Why are you crying?" And she goes, "Well, you just said next year in Jerusalem, but we just built this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful house in Teaneck. Come on, what do you think you're doing?" And he goes, "Don't worry, honey. It's just a song." And you know what? That's how they believe. To them, it's just a song. You know what? I don't know how many people actually believe when they say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem, Habanuyah, the built Jerusalem with the Beit HaMikdash. I don't know how many of those people actually believe in that's what they really are yearning for. Or they want the convenience. You know what? If it fits into my plan, my 5-year plan, and Mashiach is here, then if it fits in, great. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's more of that in Teaneck, and that's why they're marketing to them, because they know that there's already something there. They've already, as you said, been to Morashah, been to the Mushava, been to Camp Lavig, been to Camp Nesha. They feel the Israel quote-unquote love, but they need a little more. How do they get the little more? Nefesh B'Nefesh. And that's the reason. The bottom line is, honestly, Natalie, that's the reason you're interviewing these people. You're getting these people because these are the people that are making Aliyah. To find the people, I'm asking anybody listening out there, if you're listening and you're not from the Five Towns, you're not from Teaneck, if you're from Yehupitzville in Delaware, call in to Natalie. Call in. She wants to hear your story, because the bottom line is there just isn't that much. There isn't that many. You have to find those stories, Natalie.
Oh yeah, it's it's upsetting. I you know what I used to say? I used to say, wow, I used to be so angry with my parents, and I shouldn't have been. But I said, why did it take me so long to find Israel? I came here, I was 21 years old, okay? And I found it through people in college. And I made Aliyah with my husband when I was 31. Why did it take me so long? It's so unfair. Why didn't anyone come to Delaware when I was growing up and tell us about Israel?
Listen, Natalie, as I said to you before, it's a numbers game. Nefesh B'Nefesh ain't coming to Delaware to market to two people. They came to my parents in Philadelphia and marketed to them, because they can get a room of 30 people together. That's worth it for them. Market share wise, we can get 30 people in a room and we can spew it out to them, and we can get 10% of that room to make Aliyah this year. That's worth it for us. But if we're going to go to Delaware and we're going to meet with one person, and that person will either make Aliyah or not, is that worth our time? So I hear you. I think it's a beautiful thing. I honestly think that the Jewish community in America has got to get together and figure out the education system together, because if they were more normalized, the Aliyah movement and the Aliyah process in every school, not from the Salman Schechters to the most religious schools out there, if they're all on the same wavelength, then you know what? I think Aliyah would be up, and I don't think that it is. You know, I was speaking to Rabbi Gold. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I was speaking to Rabbi Gold.
So say it fast.
We got 1 minute. I'll say it real fast, Natalie. I was speaking to Rabbi Gold recently, and he's a rabbi from Har Nof, and he's telling me that there's a couple of rabbis. I'll just tell you quickly two names. There's Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, one rabbi, and another one named Moshe Feinstein. Both of them were passed away a few years ago. And they both said that moving to Israel is not a mitzvah that we have to do. But the bottom line is he said, the reason we do it is because it's a mitzvah that we're able to do. And that's what I want to say to everybody out there. This is not a mitzvah you have to do, but this is something that you can do. Imagine you can go up to Hashem after 120 years and say, you know what? I didn't have to do this, but I still did it anyways. I did one of your commandments that I didn't have to do. That's the story here. That's the story here of Aliyah. That's what we want to push. We want to push that, we know you don't have to do it, but do it. Come home. Be here. This is where it's at. This is the new hub for education, the new hub for technology, the new hub for learning. Everything is going on here. Don't be stuck in America. Be stuck here.
Good. We're done. You got it. That is it. You said it. That's great. I think we're done. Thank you, Zed.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at israelnewstalkradio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling from the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.